So after everyone bitching up a storm about how the first G.I. Joe film butchered their childhoods, the studios decided to make a new sequel with new actors, new effects, a new director, new writers, and a slew of new characters, and by the end of it, I couldn't have cared less if I fucking tried.
Code Monkey, get up, get
No. Fuck the intro, skip the damn formalities, let's just get through this before I have a goddamn aneurysm. G.I. Joe Retaliation is worse than Battleship, worse than Transformers, and you know what? Just gonna say it. It's worse than The Host. I know I can't take that last one back, but you know what? I fucking stand by it. It is worse than The Host. You see, The Host, as ungodly boring and terrible as it was, at the very least had an interesting concept. It never did anything with that interesting concept except bore me to death, but it was there. This movie has one good action scene, and that's it. That's all it has going for it. It had no interesting ideas, it had no creativity, and it had no decent characters. It had actors who were trying to make it work despite that, but sadly, trying is not the same as doing. This movie is terrible, and sitting through it and trying to comprehend all the nonsensical bullshit in it was a massive pain in my ass. But what pisses me off more than anything is... You know what? Let me just say it. I respect all other critics' opinions. I really do. I like to hear every viewpoint. I don't like to put other people down for their personal beliefs on movies. I really don't. Well, you know, unless your name is Spidey2065, in which case I'm going to rag on you for giving Spider-Man 3 a perfect 10 out of 10 rating until you die. But, I'm sorry. In what sick, twisted fucking reality was this movie better than the first one? I'm serious. Almost every review I've seen on YouTube and almost every review I've read online have all stated that this was better than Rise of Cobra. In their defense, most of them stated that this film wasn't that good, but rather just a fun time. However, I must respectfully disagree. This movie is not at all good and not at all fun. I was bored beyond comprehension watching this piece of shit, and just when I was about to walk out of the theater halfway through, the only good action scene of Snake Eyes fighting the Red Ninjas showed up in the film, and so like a fucking moron, I sat through the rest of it. Trust me, it didn't get any better. Now, when it comes to The Rise of Cobra, if you've been following my reviews for a while, you know that I actually enjoyed that movie. I'm not gonna sit here and say it was perfect. It certainly had problems, but it was certainly better than whatever the fuck this film was supposed to be. So I'm actually splitting this into two videos. The first video will be my reasons as to why G.I. Joe Retaliation sucks, and the second video will explain why I believe The Rise of Cobra was better, and why I feel the hatred for that film should be immediately redirected toward this one. On that note, let's just get this the fuck over with. In G.I. Joe Retaliation, Zartan, who is still impersonating the president, and for some reason waited well over a year to actually do something, frames the Joes and has them all terminated. Yeah, all of our favorite Joes, like Duke, Scarlet, General Hawk, Breaker, and Heavy Duty are now dead, and we're left with some struggling side characters who managed to survive the attack. We have Roadblock, played by Dwayne Johnson, Lady J, played by Adrian Palicki, and Flint, played by who the fuck cares. Now they must team up with Joe Colton, played by Bruce Willis, who looks incredibly fucking bored to be in this movie, in order to stop the evil Zartan from destroying the world so that they can clear their names and get revenge or some shit like that. My first major problem with this movie is just the fucking poorly written characters. Say what you will about the characters in the first movie, but at the very least, they were characters, and were important to the story at hand. Roadblock, Lady J, and Flint are so thinly written and inconsequential to the film's story and the plot that you could have replaced them with anyone else and I still wouldn't have cared. You'd have had the same movie. Dwayne Johnson is clearly trying to make Roadblock work, which I do give him credit for. I do love Dwayne Johnson, I really do, but the only thing we come to know about Roadblock by the end of this movie is that he was a rebel street fighter before he became a Joe, and the only time he really resembles Roadblock at all is when he recites a rhyme from Jay-Z before going into one of the 20 random-ass firefights this film has to offer. I give Dwayne all the credit in the world, he really gave it his all here, but there just wasn't any character here to fucking work with. Adrian Palicki, as Lady J, was just painful. I mean, Adrian Palicki, she's really trying to make it work, And I have liked this actress in other things, but come on! They literally take one of the most badass Joes and just make her eye candy. This movie does nothing with her but show off how hot she is until the very end when she shoots a few random guys with Bruce Willis. Again, you could have just put Scarlett, or hell, even CoverGirl in this movie instead, and you'd have the exact same character. With her being eye candy, she might as well have just been CoverGirl, for fuck's sake. The only thing we learn about this character is that she has daddy issues, and that whole thing is brought up maybe twice in the entire film. There's a scene of her talking about it with Flint, and another scene of Colton saying, serve with your father, he'd be proud. Honestly, why do I give a shit? Then there is whoever the hell this actor is playing Flint, and I swear this film goes deliberately out of its way to make this character as useless as humanly possible. He does nothing the entire movie, absolutely nothing. I honest to God couldn't even remember who the character was within seconds of walking out of the theater. I had to look him up, he was that forgettable. Now in the comics, Lady J and Flint had a relationship and even got married eventually. So when I heard they would be two of the main characters, I was looking forward to seeing that relationship develop. Does the film do that? Not at all. Instead of actually developing these two characters, they just say fuck it and make them random nothings. Lady J and Flint have zero to no chemistry in this film, and that was a massive letdown, considering what they could have and should have done with these characters. Oh, and Snake Eyes is back with an apprentice, the cousin of Storm Shadow, Jinx. Do they do anything meaningful with Snake Eyes like they did in the last film? No, fuck that. All he does is fight random bad guys and not much else. Trust me, Jinx ain't that much better. Lastly, we have the original G.I. Joe himself, Joe Colton, played by Bruce Willis. What does he do in this movie? Not a damn thing until the very end when he shoots a few people. That's fucking it. He's completely useless to everything in the film, and if you thought Marlon Wayans had terrible jokes in the first movie, check this guy out. Not only are all of his jokes in this film terrible, most of the time they don't even make sense. There was that scene when, like, he's meeting the Joes for the first time. He's meeting Roadblock, Lady J, and Flint for the very first time. And fucking Lady J says something to him, and he's holding a gun up to Roadblock. He just looks at her and says, "Shut up, Brenda." And she replies, "My name isn't Brenda." Where's the joke? Where's the humor? How the fuck is that funny? I haven't heard terrible puns like this from Bruce Willis in an action movie since his last fucking action movie! Then there are the villains, and holy shit are they worse. These are some of the dumbest, lackluster villains in recent memory. First, Zartan. What is his plan? Try to keep up, people. Well, he terminates the Joes in order to hold a meeting with the world's leaders so that they can get rid of all their nuclear missiles by launching them and exploding them into the sky so that he can fire upon all of them with the Zeus cannon that shows the fuck up out of nowhere that has the power to level each country 1,000,000 times over. Did you get all that? Okay, first of all, if you have an ungodly powerful weapon of mass destruction that has the power to level all of their countries and kill them all, and you're just gonna attempt to kill them all at the end anyway, why the fuck are you worried about them launching their nuclear weapons on you? If you could take them out simultaneously with the push of a button, then there aren't going to be any of them left alive to fire nuclear weapons on you, you fucking idiot! Oh, and how exactly does he get them to launch their nukes into space? Well, through his cleverness, Zartan holds a meeting with the world leaders to convince them to get rid of their nuclear weapons, and when they refuse, he launches all the US nukes toward their countries, which makes all of them pull out several briefcases that can launch their own nukes towards America. Okay, not only is this all nonsensical crap, but this is so unrealistic it is borderline insulting. They're having a meeting to get rid of all their nuclear weapons, and yet each and every one of them brought a briefcase that can launch their own nuclear weapons anyway? Are you high? But the even dumber thing is that because Zartan decided to launch the US nukes, they all just randomly decide to take a cue from him and launch all theirs as well, like fucking idiots. Yeah, evidently the leaders in every other country are just as stupid as the ones in this one. Oh, and then there is Storm Shadow, who is still alive with absolutely no explanation as to how he survived getting stabbed through the fucking heart and sinking in the fucking Arctic. No, he's just alive, just accept it. They never explain it, they don't even attempt to explain it. He's just alive, just fucking accept it. Oh, and by the end of this film, he's actually working with the Joes. Why? Well, contrary to the last film where we clearly saw that Storm Shadow killed his master, you know, that whole thing that caused the rivalry between these two in the first place, in this, we find out that Storm Shadow was actually not the one who killed their master after all. It was actually Zartan, who afterwards took Storm Shadow in as his pupil and trained him to be an assassin. Yeah, I'm calling bullshit. Are you gonna tell me that it took Storm Shadow this long to come to the realization that the man who took him in was the one who killed his master? Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit! Storm Shadow isn't that fucking stupid! Not to mention, in the last film, Storm Shadow hated working with Zartan and had morals that were completely different than his. And you want me to believe that this guy raised him and trained him? Fuck you!
Goodbye, sweetheart. Oh, that's right. You don't kill women.
For you, Zartan, I'd make an exception.
But wait, there's more inconsistencies than that. In the last film, we clearly see Storm Shadow feeling remorse for killing his master, and then later when he fights Snake Eyes, he even mocks the fact that he killed his master, just to get a negative reaction from Snake Eyes.
When our master was killed, you took a vow of silence. Now you will die without a word.
This whole subplot in Retaliation is just a load of crap, and it makes Storm Shadow a completely different character than he was in the last film. Now, to be fair, him working with the Joes is nothing new. In the comics and in the cartoon, Storm Shadow was actually always a redeemable character. He would fight against the Joes often, but he would work with them when he felt it was absolutely necessary. That being said, if you wanted to have this character working with the Joes, that's fine! More power to you! But for the love of God, do it in a way that feels genuine and in a way that actually makes sense instead of this half-assed, nonsensical, idiotic crap that comes the fuck out of nowhere and feels incredibly forced. I'm sorry, you cannot throw all of this idiotic crap at us and expect us to just go along with it. Contrary to what this movie believes, we do have brains and we do occasionally like to fucking use them. Now, let's talk about Ray Stevenson as Firefly. The second he came on screen, I was like, oh fuck yeah, now they're trying. This guy's gonna be awesome. Alas, I was wrong. This character is so criminally underused, it hurts. Ray Stevenson was clearly having a blast with this role, but he's completely inconsequential to the entire film. He's such a useless villain, and it bothers me because they could have done something great with him. I mean, when he's on screen, he steals the fucking show, and it's just criminal that they did so little with him. What the fuck? Oh, and by the way, Cobra Commander's in this movie. Just thought you ought to know. I mean, if you think he's being reduced to a cliff note in my review, don't. He's a cliff note in the fucking movie, too. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I don't give a fuck if he looks more like the original Cobra Commander from the cartoon. He's not a fucking character in this movie. He doesn't do a goddamn thing but stand around and act boring. Say what you will about JGL playing Cobra Commander in the first film, but at least he was actually a character and he wasn't fucking boring. The last film actually went the extra mile of giving both him and Destro backstories, fully fleshing them out and making them good villains. Here, we barely fucking see Cobra Commander, and Destro is written out of the film entirely. Oh, I take that back. We do see him in a resting chamber next to Cobra Commander when Storm Shadow and Firefly break them out, but then Cobra Commander just looks at Destro in said chamber and says, Destro, you're out of the band. Fuck you, movie! Destro is one of the coolest and one of the most primary villains in the G.I. Joe fucking universe, and they spent most of the last movie just setting him up! But here, he's not used, he's mentioned once, and we get a quick glimpse of him before the prison that was holding him in Cobra Commander explodes. So now Destro is dead, and we won't have him in any more sequels. Kiss my ass. Here's what annoys me the most about this movie. It isn't just the characters. It isn't just that the plot makes zero sense. It isn't just that every turn in this film is an annoying cliche that doesn't go anywhere. It isn't because this buttfucks everything that was good about G.I. Joe. It's that the tone is 100% different from the last film, which from what I've heard is what they were actually going for. There are some things you will understand without seeing the first film, but there are other things that you are not going to understand at all unless you've seen the first film. So, I have to ask, if you are going to make this sequel so radically fucking different from the last film, so much that you shifted the tone, fucked up all the characters, and didn't even follow through with any of the fucking plot points that the last film set up, why didn't you just do a fucking reboot? This isn't rocket science, you morons! If you're gonna stray away that much from what the last film did, then this should not have been a damn sequel. You should have just rebooted the thing if you were gonna do that shit. You still could have gotten Ray Park to play fucking Snake Eyes. Oh god, fuck you. Anyway, let's move on to the action. It sucks. Most of the action scenes in this film are terribly choreographed, especially the hand-to-hand fights, and a lot of them are just firefights. It's just them shooting at random things. If I wanted to see that, I'd watch the 40 minutes of soldiers randomly firing in the desert in Transformers 2. The main problem with the fight choreography is mainly just the way it's shot on camera and edited together. The editing in most of these scenes is distracting and frenetic. I mean, how about a wide shot once in a while? The only action scene worth it in this entire movie was the fight on the mountain with the Red Ninjas. That scene was awesome, I'm not gonna lie, but the rest was crap. This movie even commits the unforgivable sin of making a fight between Dwayne Johnson and Ray Stevenson boring! So overall, this time around, G.I. Joe was G.I. shit. It has one cool action scene and nothing else going for it. It isn't worth your time, and I feel honest to God raped. I feel dirty even talking about this. I'm sorry, it's horrendous. I don't know why so many people are liking it. Bad story, bad characters, bad action, bad sequel, bad movie. I'm giving G.I. Joe Retaliation half a star for that one action scene, and that's it. If you want to know why the first film was infinitely superior to this, stay tuned for the next video. Just remember, folks, please, for a good time, not this. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Drive it like you stole it.
As your good friend, you need a new catchphrase.
I don't know much about where I'm from, but I know I strike fear everywhere I come. Government
Let's get to work.
There, so I wear my gun. I really want the rocket launcher, but I'm still too young. This movie give me courage not to fear no one, to feel no pain and hear no tongue. So I hear no screams and I shed no tears.
The president says they can't come out of retirement. They didn't say anything about re-enlisting.